Welcome back to the channel, everyone. So I had a lot of requests to talk about my training history, a little bit of my background, and how I developed my current muscular physique and strength levels. So I'm going to get into that today. You'll see I have a diagram back here. I'm going to cover 4 things that I personally follow and recommend for people who have the same goals as me. I'm also going to talk about some different people who kind of influenced me along the way. So legendary bodybuilder Phillip Ricardo Jr. He's actually the guy on my thumbnail. Went to a gym where I got to kind of pick his brain, train with him a little bit. Joe Franco, also a champion level natural bodybuilder. So Joe was my first coach actually, and taught me how to program diet, things like that. And Doug Miller, I picked his brain. I actually worked with him a little bit about supplementation and things like that at the shop that he works at. Brett Feldman is a team national bodybuilding champion. He was also a wrestling partner of mine, and we lifted weights together for a long time. A few others too that I'll get into later. So basically it all starts with wrestling for me. I wrestled between the ages of 6 to 16, and I would say through that I developed mental toughness, the ability to kind of grind in very challenging physical situations. I built a lot of endurance, increased my cardio, things like that. So we had a lot of different drills. One of the drills that we did, and I think this is a credit where a lot of the mental toughness comes from for wrestlers, it's called Ironman. So we would have 3 partners, often larger than us, myself. So they form a triangle around you, you're in the center, and wrestling periods are 2 minutes. So for 2 minutes, you're all out trying to score points on them, they're trying to score points on you. And whistle blows after 2 minutes. Fresh person comes in and the process repeats, and that goes on for 10 to 15 minutes. And if you're able to survive that, I tell you guys, your lungs are burning like fire at the end, and there's a sense of pride in not getting pinned, especially not getting a point scored on you. That's very rare, but that drill right there will absolutely build mental toughness. So again, I say that to just say that is something I incorporate in my training today, because it allows me to grind through a lot of tough sets. As far as that goes, when I progressed into middle school, we had a strength coach, so that's when I really started doing a lot of pull-ups and push-ups, different calisthenics, to not just have great cardio, but be really strong as well. And that's where I kind of found that I was stronger than most people. When it came to my ability, how many push-ups I could do, how many pull-ups I could do. I set a couple school records with pull-ups early on. And then, from there in high school, I had an awesome athletic coach. And he basically taught us how to program in weights. So that's when I really started learning about compound movements, squats, deads, shoulder plexes, things like that, that made our team really dominant. So we had amazing cardio, we had really strong wrestlers, and I would also say that we had a mental toughness that not a lot of teams had. We actually went 2 years in a row undefeated, which is almost unheard of. We had state championship level wrestlers on the team, and they all kind of pushed us to the next level. Now, just one more thing I'll say about wrestling. That's where I kind of linked up with Brett Feldman as well as his brother Craig. They were both incredible wrestlers, so I would often do that Ironman drill with them. We also lifted weights together, and that's something I'll tell you guys. That's a trick. If you need help kind of channeling more intensity, motivation, things like that, find somebody with similar goals and train with them. Sometimes it's just a matter of pulling aside somebody in the gym and say, hey, would you mind maybe once a week training with me? It doesn't have to be every day. I'm at a point after 20 years of lifting, I'm training alone in my garage. Intensity comes like that because it's been programmed, okay? But if you're newer, that's something you may need a little help with. All right, guys, so that's just a quick background about, where my journey was with wrestling. After that, I jumped into bodybuilding my senior year. So, all throughout wrestling, I was cutting weight. So I had to maintain throughout high school 135 pounds in order to be really successful at what I was doing. But the whole time, I really wanted to get bigger. Because I really loved the lifting weights. I liked the look of getting, muscular. So senior year, I started eating more frequently. I started eating more at each meal, and I started upping the weight and, my training and everything else. And my body responded pretty quickly. My arms grew really fast, most of my muscles, and I got strong too. So for about, I'd say 12 to 15 years, a lot of my focus was on maximizing muscular development. That's where, I brought Joe Franco on board because, again, he's one of the greats as far as natural bodybuilding goes. He taught me how to structure my training, which I'll get into in a minute. And, you know, I kind of, from there, transitioned into powerlifting because a lot of people pointed out, man, that's something you have a gift for, your level of strength. You should do something with it. So I like challenging myself in different ways. It keeps me from getting bored and, you know, helps me set goals and keep the intensity up. So, you know, what I did from there, after about 15 years or so, I jumped into powerlifting. So, you know, a lot different with the training as far as how much, let's say, isolation work you do and how you structure compound movements and percentage-based training. So, you know, as the intensity and the weight, you know, goes up as you peak, you need to adjust the volume in your training, something I always do, you know, when I program for strength specifically. All right, guys, so that's kind of where I am today. I bounce between hypertrophy specific, which is more so what you'll find in my free program, also is going to build strength, but then anywhere from 2 to 3 times a year, like I'm doing right now for my bench press, I'll peak one of my lifts. So right now I'm peaking on bench, and you know, you guys see there's going to be a road to 500. That's my goal this year. So let's jump into this pyramid. At the base, what I find to be the most important is going to be your diet. So you're always going to want to shoot for about 0.8 grams per pound of body weight that you would like to weigh. So if I'm 180 pounds, I want to weigh 200 and be muscular. I'm going to base this number on that 200. Carb cycling. Early on, I learned from Joe Franco, a great way to hold on to muscle mass and get really lean is through carb cycling. So basically, days where I'm more active, say I'm training a large muscle group like my legs, I'm going to eat more carbohydrates, okay? Protein's always staying the same. Days where I'm less active, I'm going to bump up my fat intake. I'm going to lower my carbohydrates because I don't need that energy. So that's just a quick overview of carb cycling. I can get into that in another video. Fruits and vegetables, guys, eat fruit. A lot of coaches might say don't do that, that's carbohydrates. I don't agree. Fruits are very nutrient dense. You get lots of vitamins. You're gonna have you know, a feeling of fullness, so you're not gonna overeat calories, because at the end of the day, calories are what makes the biggest difference in your weight. So, you know, think about it. You eat a bowl of ice cream. It's sweet, but you finish and you're still hungry because there's not nutrients there. You eat some fruit, you're gonna feel more energy and you're gonna feel good and full, okay? Vegetables, super important, guys. I made the mistake not eating enough early on. I honestly felt like I wasn't recovering as well as after I started adding more vegetables. So I think part of the reason for that is when you're high protein, the vegetables help, you know, reduce the acidity in your blood from all that protein. Now, what I like to do personally is I'll take 2 handfuls of spinach every morning, throw it into my protein shake, blend it up, and I don't even taste it. You know, my very regular, and it's a good, you know, it tastes good. All right, guys, so that's just a quick overview of diet. Now, jumping into training, like I said, I was influenced by different people, different bodybuilders like Phillip Ricardo, Joe, Franco, and then I had my influencers as far as powerlifting goes would be Scott Drummond was a strength coach that I worked with. He was a very successful powerlifter. And then people who I like as far as what they do for the community, and I like how they program, Johnny Candido, amazing, USAPL competitor, Greg Knuckles, they both offer many free programs, which I think is really cool. That's something I'm trying to do more for the community as well. So, and so far as training, always prioritize your technique over the weight you use. I credit that for the reason I can still train with such heavy weights as a 41-year-old man. I always thought about my technique before I thought about increasing weight. There were many times where I would take a step back on something like the bench press to analyze how I was doing it because it didn't quite feel the way I needed it to, drop the weight, adjust my technique, and build back past where I was. So I would always say that, all right? Next up comes consistency. You need to train on a regular routine basis and not take too much time off. You can take a week off here and there, guys. Honestly, there's been studies where in 2 weeks you don't lose muscle mass, but you lose your recovery ability. So when you go back after 2 weeks, things are gonna hurt, and I know I don't like that. So, you know, you always wanna have some element of consistency. This is about results over years, guys, not results over weeks. Sometimes you can get a little bit more muscle in months and strength, but really, guys, over years should be the goal. I like the program starting with compounds and then moving into isolation movements. Again, I learned that through wrestling. I learned that through Joe Franco. And many other champion bodybuilders also incorporate that in their training. I know the rage today is push-pull legs. A lot of people upper, lower, upper, lower, upper, lower, because you want to get more volume. I get that. I'm not saying that's not effective, but what I am saying is have an open mind to trying different programs. We're all genetically different, respond different. And I'll tell you this, Phillip Ricardo Jr. does not do push-pull legs. Joe Franco also does more of a bro split. Believe it or not, Doug Miller is on more of a bro split, okay? My program, which you'll see in the description, it's free, is similar to a bro split, but I've also incorporated other things to increase the frequency of how often muscles are worked, time under tension techniques, things like that. So I really think it's one of the best as far as you having one thing that enables you to be very muscular and very strong simultaneously. All right, guys, so progression. I look at three main things with progression. How much weight you're adding, okay, maybe 5 pounds every 2-3 weeks. Over a long period of time, your progress will never go straight, okay, in a straight line. You're going to have dips, and but it'll be steady if you're increasing something like your weight. Reps, okay, if I can do more reps with the same weight over time, again, your muscles will develop, you'll get stronger. And something not often talked about, timing. If I can reduce rest times between sets and still do the same number of reps on those successive sets, that's another way you can make progress, okay? So think about this. If I can do 8 reps on my first set of squats, for example, and I take a 3-minute break, and then I can do 8 reps on that next set because I've recovered, but then, maybe in 3-4 weeks, I'm now shortening my rest time to 2 minutes, and I can still do the same number of reps. That's another form of progress. So always look to have something progressing in your training. If you're not progressing in any of those 3 variables, you're not developing your muscles and you're not really going to get much stronger. You'll maintain what you've done, but you're not progressing. So you need to be mindful of that. Also, I'll recommend this to most people, keep a training journal. Dorian Yates kept a training journal. Many people at the top do that. I do that. And the reason I recommend that is you can keep track of things that feel really great as far as exercises you want to keep in your routine. Keep track of things that you need to adjust because maybe they didn't hit the target muscle or a joint doesn't feel well. As well as, just monitoring progress over time. It's really good to have a documentation of that. Next, we're going to jump into recovery. So we covered diet, training, let's jump to recovery. 2 main things I like to think about when recovering are how much sleep do you get? So we go into the gym, we tear down our muscle fibers. When we leave the gym, we're getting our protein and we're trying to stay, relaxed, not stressed out. And if we get those, sleep hours, I recommend generally 7 to 8. That's when your body's repairing itself, okay? It's, basically assimilating all the protein you've ingested and rebuilding those muscles to become bigger and stronger. So you gotta be mindful of your sleep. I also put up mindfulness. Guys, I'm not saying go become a Buddhist, but if you look into some of what they practice, it can be really helpful in alleviating some of the stresses you may feel day to day. So an example of that, when you go out for a walk, are you really looking around and taking things in around you? Like, have you ever looked up the sky lately and just marveled at how awesome stars are? Or really just like sat there and looked at a cool tree or something? Like that really can be calming, okay, for a lot of people. Another quick example is traffic. I know for myself, when I was younger, I used to want to fight people who cut me off. I thought, you're personally attacking me. But look at it differently. Reality is a matter of perception. Let's say I tell myself that person has an emergency they need to attend to right now, and I'm just going to let that go because I hope that works out for them. You're going to feel much different. You're not going to get as stressed out. And stress management is huge when it comes to making progress with your physique, with your strength. So keep that in mind. And last, and I put this at the top because it might make a 4 or 5% difference if I'm pushing it, is supplementation. So I put Doug Miller's name because I got a chance to work with him at his, nutrition corners, one of the shops he runs, and kind of just go into supplementation. What I like about Doug, he walks the walk, right? He's a champion bodybuilder. He's older, a little bit older like myself, in his 40s now, has kids, and still grinds. He's also really smart, guys. So Doug has degrees, and I believe he was near the top of his class, in biochemistry as well as molecular biology. So he really knows what he's talking about when it comes to how, he formulates supplements, his recommendations, things like that. The other thing that's cool, he'll agree with me when I say diet and training and recovery trump supplements any day. You need those things in place. Don't worry about number 4, supplements, unless you have number 1, diet, together, okay? Now, supplements I recommend, some basics, protein powder. Personally, I like a blend. Right now I'm using something called PE Science. Flavor I love is Snickerdoodle. It blends up really thick even with water. And you can have it any time. You know, if I'm in a rush in the morning and I don't have time to make eggs or something, I'll just have my protein shake. Generally, I only recommend 1 protein shake a day. Try not to go over that. Creatine. My most recommended type is monohydrate because it has the most long-term clinical studies showing it to be effective. And as far as the type of monohydrate, I'd look for micronized type because it's easier on the body as far as digesting it. You only need 5 grams a day, and you can take it any time. It doesn't matter if it's pre-workout, before bed. As long as you just take, basically a teaspoon of 5 grams a day, you're good to go. Also, the thing about creatine is it has mental benefits. I won't go into that now, as well as physical benefits. Very healthy. If you have concerns as far as your kidneys, things like that, most people are fine. Get some blood work, take an objective view on how things are affecting you. That's what I always say with supplements. Don't go based on how, oh, this feels like it works. Look at your training journal. Did things improve? Go get labs done. How do they look, okay? Vitamin D. A lot of us are in colder climates. We may not be out walking around in the sun. And if that sun exposure is limited, you may want to get your vitamin D labs done. Now, a lot of experts in the field are recommending around 60, 70, which is the top of the range, is where you want your VD level to be. Myself personally, I take a very cheap vitamin D supplement. It's 5,000 IUs by Now is the company, and that bumps my level up to around 65. That's good for hormone production. It will help support as a man, women as well, like your testosterone production. It's also going to give you a bit of extra energy. I can say I've noticed that. I used to have low D levels, bumped them up, I generally feel more energy. Lastly, caffeine. I think there's a benefit to that. Recent study shows that black coffee, I'm not talking about with cream and stuff added, can extend your lifespan. How cool is that? Now, I'm not saying go out and start drinking coffee and taking caffeine. If you don't need that extra bump to get psyched up to train, there's no need for it. However, what I like to do is use it on occasion. So if I have a really intense training day, like my legs or my back day, I might take 200 milligrams or a cup of coffee. And that gives me that little bump of motivation I need to just push through that challenging workout. The other thing about using it intermittently like that, it doesn't lose its effect and it doesn't become something that you need more of over time. I've heard of stories where guys need 5, 6 cups of coffees in a pre-workout, to go lift. And to me, guys, that's not healthy. A lot of these pre-workouts, have things in them aside from caffeine to stimulate you that don't have a lot of research behind it, and so I don't often recommend it. Not saying you never should try a pre-workout, but I'm also saying really assess your recovery, how much sleep you got, really assess your diet, are you getting all the nutrients you need, and really assess, things like your vitamin D level. If those things are all in place, you probably won't need a pre-workout. And honestly, guys, for myself, I really don't. All right, well, that's all I really wanted to cover today. A little bit about myself, a little bit about the basics I think are really essential for you guys to make progress. If you like the video, be sure to like the video. Throw something down in the comments if you want me to talk more about, diet, training, recovery, supplements, anything like that. Have a great week.